All right, folks, we are glad to see you tonight on this beautiful day in California. And we have a wonderful show ahead and great guest to share some views that we have. But I have to say that there's one thing that Tucker shared in his rant that was just a little off, that this is how we've done things for the last 2,000 years. I would have to say, no, this is how we've done things since the caveman days. And if you're not a productive member of society, then you don't get to belong in society, and you have to do things different. You have to provide, and you have to move out and do things that help your fellow man and your community. In order to you have to participate in the community in order to be a part of it. You can't just be a parasite and leech off of the fruits of others. So Rachel Hamm, glad to have you on with us tonight. There's a lot going on. God bless you for joining us, and thank you so much. You have a couple of important things going on in your world, but before we bring you in, I want to say that coming up, there's some important things happening at our Capitol, and our Capitol liaison Andrea has been paying close attention to what's going on within the walls of the Capitol and the bills that these lunatics are trying to pass around us and get done before we're aware. And one of them is Senate Bill 866. And Senate Bill 866 allows a child of 12 years old or greater to make a medical decision of their own for themselves and circumvent the will of their parents without their parents' knowledge or consent to become vaccinated. So that's something that people are taking note of. That's Senate Bill 866. We have Senate Bill 1400 that people need to pay very close attention to. And Senate Bill 1400 is being voted on this week. Your legislators are voting to socialize medicine in California and implement a single-payer healthcare system in California without your consent. And people in California have been very clear that this is not something that they want, but your legislatures have turned a deaf ear and a blind eye to your needs, your wants, and your wishes, and they are no longer representative of the people they serve. Senate Bill 1400, you can Google it, look it up. It's something that people need to be very aware of. And this coming Tuesday, February 1st, I believe, is a hearing where the same Senate, it's a joint hearing between the Assembly and the Senate to revisit how recall is done in California. In 1911, Governor Hiram Johnson ushered in a new era in California, and they implemented self-governance through direct democracy. Direct democracy, it means that the people have the ability within themselves around the legislature or to bypass the legislation to change laws that they've implemented. If they are contrary to the will of the people, we can reverse them. We can change our tax laws. We can tax ourselves, or we can reverse taxes. We can implement laws. We can change the Constitution, or we can recall a governor or that was a Freudian slip. We can recall a government official when they fail to do their job, when they don't represent us properly, or they just fail to do their job. We can recall them. There's the referendum process, the initiative process, and the recall process. This is all direct democracy, and it gives the people the power to legislate of their own accord. And this is all under attack, and their hearing is taking place on Tuesday. This is the third hearing, and I've attended the first two, and I will be there for this next one on Tuesday. And I will testify as a witness that this is a kangaroo court. They're packing their expert witnesses with people who are favorable to their cause, who want to just ram this through and then pass legislation because they have the ability to change the Constitution of their own accord, as long as they have 2/3 vote within the legislation to change the Constitution. And this is what they're trying to do so they can limit our ability to self-govern in California. And we need to be very aware of what's going on around us. And we need to take action and make sure that we stand up and fight against this, because they are taking our rights, our constitutional rights, away from us without our permission or consent. So without any further ado, Rachel Hamm, God bless you, and thank you for joining us tonight. And we're so very glad to have you.
Thank you. God bless you too. And I'm glad to be with you. Thanks for asking.
Absolutely. So what do we have going on? Rachel, you're running for office. Let our folks know what you have planned for California.
Yes, I am running for Secretary of State for the state of California because I believe that honest, sound, free, and fair elections are a key to our free republic. And if we don't have that, what do we have? And so I felt like somebody who was really, really honest, couldn't be blackmailed, couldn't be bribed, couldn't be bought. That's who needed to step up and run for Secretary of State. And I think I maybe said it 20 times before I finally thought, I think it's me. So there was a series of events that led me to that, but ultimately it was just a deep concern for what I see happening in my state. I'm sure, like everyone watching right now, and I know, like you feel, Orrin, that California is pregnant with promise, which basically just means, I mean, there's just so much potential. We all know that, right? That's why we live here. That's why we moved from other places to be here. It's beautiful. There's so many natural resources. The potential is just unlimited. And we have creativity, like I think no other state. I think California truly has the potential to be the best state in the nation. And I think under different leadership, it would be the best state. I think it used to be the best state. And right now it is a living hell. So to be honest, I really contemplated leaving. I mean, it was like, we can't live like this. I mean, even watching that Tucker segment, I watched it live when it was on Tucker show, and my blood pressure just goes up as I'm watching it because they're intentionally ruining our state. Now that might be controversial. Some people might say, well, maybe not, maybe it's unintentional. I think they are intentionally ruining our state because there's no way that they're that inept. There's something very intentional going on. It's bizarre. It's terrible. I'm sick of there being so many places in my state now that I don't want to go. I don't want to go to LA anymore. I don't want to go to San Francisco. And those are places that I used to love. And it's a full-blown crisis. I mean, really, we are living through a crisis in our state. And I think that if good people like you and I and others that are watching right now don't step up and do everything that we can do to take our state back, we're going to lose it. It's going to be too late at some point. And then what? So, not all of us have the luxury of relocating. There's so many people that are doing that right now. It's like, they're like, it's terrible. It's getting worse every day. I'm out. But so many people aren't in a situation where they can do that. And I think that those of us who can should step up and stay and fight.
100%. And, over the last 10 years, we've lost 5 million good hard working people in California.
Yeah.
Les Schwab just packed up their shop and moved to Texas. Why did they move? They moved because their shop wasn't sustainable here in California. Mm-hmm. Not because they weren't profitable here, but because their employees couldn't enjoy the same standard of living here in California, mm-hmm. with the same wages that they would make under their employee that they would make elsewhere. So, mm-hmm. out of concern for the welfare of their employees, they packed up their shop and they moved elsewhere where their employees would experience a better standard of living somewhere else, where their cost of living wasn't so high, where they didn't have, didn't have to pay $5 a gallon for gas, or so much at the grocery store, and their living cost at home wasn't just so exorbitant that they weren't sustainable. So while Les Schwab, the company, was doing well here in California, and it was going to cost them a lot of money to move, it was worth it to them to pack up and leave and bring their employees with them, so their employees had a better way of life. And that's the problem that we see over and over and over again. The same thing happened with Tesla and with Oracle and with Toyota, and with, it's just time and time again, you see these companies and their employee base just picking up stakes in California and moving their tent to another state where they have greener pastures and a better way of life. And that's what we're trying to turn around here in California. That's what Rebuild California is all about. We're trying to secure a future here in our state that we can all live with. And, that's what's so important. So, and God bless you for what you're doing. And, the Secretary of State is one of the top state officials who they're very critical to how things are run in our state. And right now, a lot of people don't understand. There is not one Republican or independent that holds a state office in California.
Yeah, I know.
So what do you bring? What, you're going to be asked this a lot, and I hate to put you on the spot, but what do you bring to the table that your competitors are going to say, you know what, I got something better? Or what do voters want to see from Rachel Hamm that they're not going to see in your competition?
Yeah, well, specifically Pat Bates, I would really like to encourage her to drop out of the race and support me. I know she has a long track record. She's a career politician, and she has a track record as a conservative. But what I bring to the table that she doesn't is that I am a very fierce fighter, and I don't give up, and I cannot be compromised, bought, blackmailed, all that stuff that I just said. And I am half her age. I'm half her age, and I have a lot of energy and vitality and a lot of years ahead of me. And I'm at a kind of a sweet spot as far as stage of life, where my sons are pretty much raised. I have 3 adult sons and 1 that's finishing in high school. And, but so I got started when I was young. So I'm 45. And so I still have a lot of years ahead of me where I could really get going right now to turn things around in California and actually stick with it and see it through long term to see this process through, because there's so much intense work that has to be done. And she's 74, which I have so much respect for our elders and all that. I'm not trying to like shame her for her age, but I just don't think that at 74, are you really going to have, it's a 4-year term. Are you really going to have the intense fight in your gut and the fire in your belly that you're going to need to go in and face this situation that we're dealing with as a state? And I kind of doubt it. And so I think also that while she is a career politician and I've never held an office, I think that is to my benefit. We don't need what we've already had. We need something new. We need fresh thinking. We need fresh ideas. And that's not what she brings at all.
It's the old guard needs to pass the torch on to the next generation, and we need new blood. We need somebody with energy and drive and stamina and a vision. One of my favorite sayings that I like, and I forget who coined the phrase, the only thing worse than being blind is having no vision. And I think that the old guard in California has lacked vision, and this is why the Republican Party is slipping in the polls. This is why the Republican Party is losing membership over and over and over again. I think that they just lack the vision to move forward. And
I agree. They do.
they're doing, they're subscribing to the get along to go along to get along program.
Actually,
with
worse
the
than that, they're kind
Democrats.
of like
And
laying down and totally
yep,
conceding. I mean, and when I go to all these events, right, these Republican events, and as I go, that's the one, what you just said is exactly what I keep saying. I said, where's the vision? There's no vision. It's literally like a funeral. I mean, it feels like a death. I mean, there's just this kind of somber, sad, well, remember the old days, and then they start talking about things that are stupid and irrelevant. Like, we are losing our nation, we are losing our state, and they're talking about like the next social get together and doing this. And I'm thinking, no, the Republican Party needs a kick in the butt is what they need.
yes,
And
they do.
need to
And
wake
the
up.
CAGOP needs a swifter kick in the ass than any of the others.
Yep.
So you're absolutely right, Rachel.
Yeah.
So yeah, we need to stimulate some changes, and the only way to do that is with new blood and new vision, and with the drive and energy that you have. And that's why I'm so glad to have you on our show. This is going to be a short show tonight, folks. Mike Netter, I don't think, is going to be joining us, which is kind of a rarity here, but we miss him, but he's busy off on doing other things in the state, and he will be joining us again next week. So, but Rachel, you also have a February 5th event coming up, correct?
Yes, I do. So I'm a part of a national coalition of Secretary of State candidates. I don't know how many people are aware of this, but the Secretary of State position in each state was really targeted by the left starting about 20 years ago. They zeroed in on that position, and you would kind of think like, well, why the Secretary of State position? You would think maybe the governorship, right? Well, that's because if you own the Secretary of State position, you have a lot of power. They oversee the vote. Who was it that said, I don't care who votes, I just care who counts the vote? Right?
That's right.
It's
Yep.
so important to have a very integrous person as Secretary of State. So George Soros funded a Secretary of State candidates all over the nation to get those people into that position so that they would maybe have some flexibility with all of the elections. And potentially, if you're corrupt as Secretary of State, you could potentially manipulate all of the different positions or control them in some way. Let's hope they're not doing that, but I think it's possible. So our coalition is trying to kind of counter what George Soros has done by targeting that position. And we have come together, this group of patriots who love our country, who believe freedom is worth fighting for, who believe that capitalism really is, while it has its flaws, the best way to conduct a society. And we really want to fight to stay free, to stay a free republic. So we all have this shared set of goals for the country. And so we work together and we support one another. We have a team of people that help us, that counsel us and coach us and give us all kinds of really helpful guidance through the process. Because a lot of us are brand new, like me, where we're just like stepping up, but it's not something that we have a lot of experience with. And so they're helping us through the process. And so we decided to do these public forums all over the country to talk about what happened in the last election nationally, and then also what happened within our own states. And we did that because we were privy to a lot of information from the 2020 election. We got to meet with the experts. We got to read the unredacted affidavits from the different cases, stacks and stacks of them, not like one or two. I mean, just really a lot of evidence that I would say we're privileged to get to see. So then we know a lot that other people don't know. And then we see how it's covered in the media. It's completely lied about in the media. And we got frustrated with people saying, okay, there's no evidence that anything has gone wrong with our elections.
Yeah, the unfounded accusations of voter fraud from Donald J. Trump and so forth, as they portray it in the media and so forth.
Right. So we wanted to bring that to the people. We wanted to bring that information to the people. So we started in Nevada, did one in Nevada, then we did Arizona, then we did one in Colorado, Montana, and then this weekend we're going to be in Wisconsin, which is very timely with what just happened in Wisconsin. And then February 5th, we're coming to California. So these friends of mine, these experts, these cybersecurity experts, these election analysts, and people who are way smarter than me are coming to California to present evidence to show what
Now,
no one else will do.
I wouldn't sell yourself short, because you are one of the more intelligent people that I've ever come across on the trails of life. And I've seen you speak on the stage, and you are off the cuff, from the heart, and genuine, heartfelt, wholesome, and you have a strong message to sell. So don't ever sell the idea that there are others out there more intelligent than you, because you have a very powerful message, and there are people that need to hear it, and we need to get that out.
Thank you.
I've talked closely with the election integrity people here in California, and we know that there were anomalies in California. And folks, the Secretary of State, from what I understand, now this is unverified information that I had gotten from a reliable source. Mind you, I want to give the disclaimer, it's unverified, but from a reliable source, that Secretary of State Shirley Weber suspended a trigger mechanism that would have resulted in a full audit of a county's ballots if there was an inconsistency in the vote, or if there were an anomaly that didn't line up with the report. So what I was told was that the Dominion machines, the Smartmatic machines, they spit out a report, and it's real time right now. And then the counties have 30 days to do a 1% tally or audit of their votes, and it's a random audit of their votes. So they go in and they look at the paper ballots at random to determine whether or not the random audit is similar to the report given out by the machines, Smartmatic or Dominion or whatever. And I was told that there were counties where the tally didn't match the report from the machines. The machine spit out a report, said that, okay, you know what, during the recall, it was 60% in favor of keeping Governor Newsom as governor, and 40% in favor of the recall. But the tally showed it was 75% in favor of the recall and 25% in favor of keeping the governor in his seat in those same counties. That would have normally triggered a full audit, a manual count of all of those ballots. But in the days leading up to the election, I was told Shirley Weber suspended the trigger mechanism, which would have called for that count. And this is why, like you said, it doesn't matter, who casts a ballot, it matters who counts the ballots, right? Yeah. So if this is true, you have to be suspect as to why she suspended the trigger mechanism that would have, triggered a full audit just days before the election when these anomalies took place. I still have those questions in my mind.
When we were there, remember when she was talking about how it's too expensive to audit? It's too expensive to recall all that. It's too expensive. So I would imagine that's what she would say. It's just too costly, to have an honest election.
You know what? It's too costly to count the ballots that the people have cast. I'm saying that, call them BS on that. And, everything that comes out of her mouth is suspect to me, because she is a an appointee from Governor Gavin Newsom, and she was fighting to keep her boss in office, as were the supermajority legislature, who conspired, just months ahead of the election to change the rules of the election and to make it an all paper ballot, election, and or not paper ballot, but mail-in ballot election and things like that. So I don't want to get mired down into the weeds as far as that election goes, but this just shows how critical the Secretary of State's position is in our state, in any state in the nation. And this is why George Soros is pushing his agenda, his one world government agenda forward in our country. George Soros has an axe to grind with Western civilization and our nation as a whole. And it goes all the way back to his childhood. Like I said, I don't want to get mired down in the weeds as to George Soros's upbringing or his roots and things like that. We all know where he comes from and what his background is, but there's a good reason that Hungary, his home country, has banned him from doing any sort of business within their borders. As a matter of fact, if he were to return to his homeland, they would arrest him on sight because he is that corrupt. And he's using his billions to manipulate world markets. You could see, there's a 60-minute interview with George Soros where the person interviewing him had asked him if he had anything to do with the collapse of the Asian market. And George Soros said, yeah, it's an amoral game we're in, and it's all about money. And yeah, I did that. And he was unsympathetic, just as unsympathetic as he was as a junior Nazi taking the goods and the belongings from Jews in his town, where they would go and round up the belongings of people before they were hauled off. And he was unsympathetic. And his response was that if it wasn't me doing it, it would have been somebody else. So and that was in that interview, and those are his words, not mine. I wouldn't put words in his mouth. They were his words, but he basically was just unsympathetic. And he said that his childhood, his formative years as a junior Nazi were some of the proudest moments in his life. And this is why George Soros has an axe to grind with the country who put an end to his desires to be a world leader. And he wants nothing more than to see the collapse of Western civilization. And that's why he's putting people like Shirley Weber in office. That's why he's putting people like George Gascon in office and Chesa Boudin in San Francisco. George Gascon being the district attorney of Los Angeles and Chesa Boudin being the district attorney in San Francisco. And fact of the matter is, George Soros gave over $1 million to protect his interest in Governor Newsom's position as governor here in California during the recall. So,
not surprising.
Okay, I'm off on that rant now.
Yeah, well,
So,
I mean, it's true though. He's a big part of what has gone wrong in our country. But I would like to say one other thing, because I feel like sometimes we're so aware that there are a lot of problems, and sometimes it even feels like in California it feels kind of hopeless. Like you were saying, there's no conservatives are in any statewide office, and then if we doubt that we have honest elections, it starts feeling like, okay, well, where is the hope in this? I mean, it just feels so bad, right? Well, a couple of things. One, I think that there are things we can do with the elections, and we need to be doing those. Number one, everyone needs to be voting. And I love President Trump. I think he was an excellent president, but I feel frustrated with some of the things he has said that have caused people to shrink back from voting. And so I think it's important that we know that some of the fraud can take place when we don't vote, because empty votes can then be used however anyone wants to use them, right? Like if you don't vote, now that's an empty vote that if I'm corrupt, can vote. I can use your vote however I want to use it. So please, everybody, vote. It's so important.
Now,
vote and take everyone to vote.
You and I have had a conversation about this, and voter apathy is more detrimental to our process than voter fraud. Yeah. So there was a circumstance in Torrance, California during the recall where a doper was caught with 300 ballots, unlawfully, and he was arrested with possession of drugs and guns and or these stolen ballots. And then there were a couple of other ladies that were arrested for, breaking into mailboxes at an apartment complex that contained voter ballots as well. And then the media latched on to both of those circumstances, and they just pushed that out. And they kept pushing that out. And what that leads to is an overwhelming feeling of apathy within the electorate. So the people that feel their vote won't count won't waste their time to go out and cast their ballot. They won't put they won't put it in the mailbox. They won't, they're not going to go down and put it in. There were 6 million people who voted for Donald J. Trump in 2020. And I would have assumed those same 6 million people would have come out to vote in favor of our recall. But we only had 4 million show up to the ballot. Okay, 4 million people cast their vote in favor of our recall here in California. And there's a large portion of them who were non-party preference and Democrats. We strongly believe that there was a report put out by the LA registrar that 57% of the people who cast their ballot in Los Angeles were Democrats in favor of the recall. So what I'm saying is that you had non-party preference and Democrats voting in favor of our recall. Where the hell were the rest of the Republicans who voted for Trump? I'm guesstimating there were in upwards of 3 million people who voted for Donald Trump in 2020 who didn't show up for the recall. And that's voter apathy. And that's because they just felt disenfranchised, during the 2020 election. And my vote doesn't count. What do I care? It's not worth my time. I'm not going to waste my time.
Yes.
So they just left their ballot.
That's why I say that, right? It's so important that we vote. Vote, tell your kids to vote, tell your husband to vote, tell your neighbors to vote. And then also sign up to be a poll watcher. We have 8 Democrat poll watchers to every 2 Republican poll watchers in California. We need conservatives to step up and be poll watchers. And then with the Election Integrity Project, one thing that Linda Payne is doing is lining up attorneys who are in place on election day, so that when a poll watcher, if you sign up to a poll watcher and you see something that's not right, and they train you, so you don't have to worry about like what to do or what to look for, they'll train you. And then when you see something that's not right, you can report it immediately, and they will immediately have the ability to act on it with an attorney, so that we can not even move into the certification process without doing something about what just happened. So there's things that are being put in place, and it gets better each time. I mean, Linda has been working so hard at this for so long, God bless her. So there's things that we're doing to secure our elections, but also I just feel like it's important to talk about the fact that we truly need like the grace of God to turn the situation around. And as you look at the Skid Row stuff with Tucker, right, you see all that homelessness, and it's like, okay, what is the solution to that? Like, how do we really truly turn that big of a problem around? And I think that we need to do everything we can do. And then we also genuinely, and this again could be controversial, I just kind of like don't really care. We need God's grace to turn this around. We need to pray for our state. We need to ask for God's intervention. We need to ask for God to cause evil and corruption to be exposed, and for good people to have courage. That we have some amazing sheriffs in our state.
Up.
Yes. And some of them are like the sheriff in LA County. Man, I have been so proud of him. He's done some really great things, and he's a Democrat, but it doesn't matter. He's a good guy trying to do the right thing as best I can tell. You probably know better than me, but he's done some good things recently. And so we need to pray for those kinds of people, those people who are in positions where they do have an ability to do something. Pray for them to have courage to do it, to step up and to fight the evil that's taking place. So I really think that it's the whole like act as if it's all up to you and pray as if it's all up to God. And between those two, I think that is how the state turns around. So
wonderfully said. I couldn't say it any better. So Rebuild California is looking ahead, and I think that one of the things that we need to do is to forecast to the future, and to have that vision that we talk about, and to have some action items that we can work on moving forward. It's too late for the 2022 cycle to put anything on the ballot, but through direct democracy and through the initiative process, we can bring all of these things that we're talking about to ballot. If we want voter identification, if we want a thumbprint on every ballot, if we want to change things in our election cycle, you talked about having poll watchers. I would like to implement the casino style surveillance in every poll station.
Absolutely.
And have that surveillance maintained by law for a prescribed period of time, so we can go back and review those tapes and look at it. We saw how important that was in Georgia when they had that phantom water line break. They evacuated the building, and then all of a sudden, the people pulled out these, clandestine suitcases out from under the tables and started counting ballots again without the poll watchers in place.
Well, and I would take it a step further. I would love to see small precincts, no more of the big voting centers, small precincts with the cameras on the whole time. And at the end of the evening, I want anyone in their precinct to be able to live stream. So like you can watch your own precinct all day if you want. You could watch at the end of the night.
More of this crap where people are having to watch the counting from behind plexiglass with binoculars and trying to figure out what's going on from 10 or 20 feet away. And so I think that we have to have a multi-pronged approach to changing, to rebuild people's faith and confidence in our election process. And that's one of them. The other one is to clean up the voter rolls. We all know, whether you folks at home, whether you believe that there is massive voter fraud going on a grand scale, or there's Russian or Chinese influence in our elections or anything like that. Whether you believe that or not, it doesn't matter. We all know there's a problem with our voting process, and it's up to us to fix it, because the legislatures that are in office have turned a deaf ear and a blind eye to the problems that we're facing. And it's up to us to fix it. We have the ability to amend the Constitution, change laws, and we can fix this on our own accord. So we can do it. And my recommendation is that we do it on a multi-pronged approach. One is to clean up the voter rolls, that every voter in California has to sign an affidavit that they're a resident of the United States or a citizen of the United States and a resident of California in order to cast a ballot here. And that they're alive and well, and they can, of sound mind, they can cast a ballot here in California. Voter identification. If we want voter identification, we can implement that. We have the ability to implement that. We do not have to wait for government officials to say, okay, well, we're going to make a law. We can do that ourselves. And we can clean up the voter rolls ourselves. We can mandate that the government act in accordance to our wishes. It's of the people, by the people, and for the people. And if these government officials fail to represent us, then we need to remove them from office, either through the election cycle or recall them and fire them.
Amen.
So, and we're just about getting ready to wrap up this segment. This has been a wonderful conversation. I'm going to turn it over to Tim for Tim's Corner if he has anything to add.
Nothing
Tim,
tonight, folks. Nothing tonight.
Not tonight. Okay. So I know that some of the things that Tim's been working on with Andrea are the hearings that are going on in Sacramento, where there are hearings and votes taking place on SB 866 and SB 1400. I just want to remind people, Google those. Just know what your legislatures are doing and what they're imposing on you. And basically, by creating the single payer healthcare, if you thought your cost of living in California was high already, it's going to double. Yeah. Because they're going to double. They're looking at doubling our taxes in order to fund this SB 1400. And if they can't fund it, a state cannot operate in a deficit. I'm going to say that again. A state cannot operate in a deficit. So the federal government, they can print all of the money that they want to operate and continue operating, and they can raise their debt ceiling and all that good stuff. But a state can't do that. So what I'm saying is that the government, the California, when they implement SB 1400, you're the one that's going to bear the burden. Your property taxes are going to go up. Your gas taxes are going to go up. Your sales tax are going to go up. Everything. They're going to take a $246 billion budget and they're going to double that. And this is your warning call. This is your warning call, folks. Yeah. So pay attention to what's going on. And Andrea is down at the Capitol on a daily basis. She's paying attention to what's happening within the Capitol walls at these hearings. And she is very outspoken at the Capitol. And we appreciate all the work that she's done to keep us informed in what's going on there. But it's our job to take action to let these people know that they are no longer operating with our consent. So that being said, Rachel, I'm going to give you 30 seconds, wrap it up.
Okay, well, I think that California is worth fighting for. I think that it's an all hands on deck situation. So for every person that's watching, I really encourage you to ask yourself, or ask God, if you're so inclined, what is my role in taking my state back? And then do it. Don't shrink back, do it. Rise up and be courageous and do your part. And if we all do our part, I believe this is doable. We can do this. We can turn this situation around, but it's going to take all of us. So please don't assume that this is someone else's fight, or because I'm running for office, I'm going to take care of it, or because of what Orrin has done, he's going to take it. No. Every single one of us needs to do something. So whatever your part is, do it. And please spread the word about me, Rachel Hamm, for SOS, for Secretary of State. I would appreciate that. That's something that would be really helpful, so that I'm really wanting to focus on the Hispanic vote and the independent vote, because that's really a path to victory for us as conservatives, that we could actually win if I can get the independent vote. And I want to reach out to the Hispanic community. It's a huge portion of California. And actually the woman who helped Ron DeSantis win his governorship, he says she is why he won. She helped him get the Hispanic vote in in Florida. She's working with me to help me. And so I love that, because obviously the Hispanic community is so vital to California, and such a beautiful part of our state. And so that's where I would really love to focus my attention. And I can do that if conservatives and Republicans will do their part in spreading my name through that community, so that I can focus on those other two things. So I also need money. Obviously, that's a big part of it. Everything is so stinking expensive in a state this big. So RachelHammSOS.com is my website. If you can donate, any little bit helps.
And that's Rachel Hamm, Hamm.
Yes. And Rachel is RachelHammSOS.com. And then I put in the chat on the Zoom, the link, if you want to register for my February 5th event, if you would like to come and hear the information about our elections be presented. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be in the Central Valley, so you can come from north and south and join us. So
are you live streaming that out, or is it going to be available online?
We're going to live stream it on the same website that I just put in that chat. So
excellent.
I don't know if you guys can post it on the Facebook page also, but
absolutely.
yeah, it'll be live streamed on there.
Yeah, very good. And I just want to say that Orrin Heatlie, and on behalf of the entire Rebuild California team, which is formerly the Recall Gavin Newsom 2020 team, we are graciously accept, your candidacy and support and endorse your run for Secretary of State.
That
So
means a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, it means a lot that you're stepping up to do it, and we support and endorse your candidacy, and we look forward to you taking office in the near future. So God bless. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much, Orrin. I appreciate you. And God bless you for all that you've done for our state. Truly, I have admired and respected all that you've been doing. A lot of us have. Your name is golden in the Golden State. So thank you. Thank you
Well,
for all
God
you've done.
bless. All right. Thank you very much. And Tim, wrap her up. Thank you, Rachel. God bless. Everybody
Thank
have
you,
a good
guys.
night.